In this video, I'm going to talk about defining sliders in GeoGebra. Now, if you've ever used a dynamic math software, you're probably aware of what a slider is. It essentially creates a little sliding tool where you can adjust the value of a number. So in GeoGebra, if you define a number, so if we use the input bar and we just define a number, I'm just going to call it A, and we just say A is equal to 3, by default, GeoGebra is going to show a little slider in the algebra view. So if you just define a number straight up, it'll automatically create the slider in the algebra view. Now, if you click on the little circle to the left of this, it's going to show that slider in the graphics view. So now we've got the slider in the graphics view, and you can see that it's linked to the one in the algebra view. So these things are both controlling the value of A, and right away we've got a basic slider set up. Now another option for this is using the toolbar. We see actually there's a slider icon sitting right here. If we click on that and click slider, we can take the slider tool and click anywhere in the graphics view. So we'll just select somewhere right here. We can choose the name. So we'll just leave this with B. We can name it anything we want, but we'll just name this slider B, and then you can set an initial value for this slider. And then we have some options. We can create it as a slider for a number, for an angle, for an integer, and then we've got some options here. So the first set of options here, and if you click on this in the web view, it might pull open this onboard keyboard, which sometimes can be annoying. Just close it out with an X if you want to. But back to this, we can change the minimum of our slider. So maybe we'll say the minimum of this one is 0. We'll say the maximum is 2 times pi, and you can do calculations in this. So 2 times pi will just go from 0 to 2 pi, and then we can actually choose the increment in which the slider moves. So the smaller number, the smoother the slider is going to be. So I'm just going to do 0.001. And then the next tab, we've got some options for the slider. We can change the width of the slider. I'm going to change it to 100. You can make it vertical if you want. And then we've got a tab for animation where we can change the way in which this thing animates. So by default, it's going to go back and forth or oscillate. We can make it strictly increasing, strictly decreasing, or we can make it increase just once. Now I'm just going to do increasing for now, and we'll hit OK. And it's going to create this second slider right here. So B, we notice it starts at 0, and we can increase all the way up to 2 times pi, or 6.28. So that's pretty nice. Now once we've defined a slider, if you right-click on it and go to the object properties, there's a slider tab where you can change all of the things that you just selected in the previous menu. So for example, for whatever reason, the width of our slider did not change. So if we change it here, now we notice that the width of this slider is now 100 pixels. And we've got all of those options there. You can also change the color of these things. Maybe we'll make this one red just to distinguish. Now if you go to the Basic tab, there's a checkbox for animation on. If I click animation on, now we see this slider start animating. Since we chose increasing, it's going to increase from the lowest value to the highest value and then just start over. When you animate this, you've got a little play and pause button at the bottom left of the graphics view. So we can pause it, we can start it, so on and so forth. And then we also have some controls over in the algebra view. You can also right-click on a slider and then select the animation little checkbox, and that's also going to start the animation. Okay, so now we've got 2 methods. The third method is using a function called slider in the input bar. So maybe we'll just create a slider, we'll call it C, and then we'll use the slider function. And then it pops up with a slider function with all of these inputs. And it can be kind of overwhelming. So what I do is only ever look at these first 3 inputs. If you just feed it the first 3 inputs, it'll default the rest of them, which usually works pretty well. So we'll give it the min, the max, and then the increment. So we'll do a slider that starts at -10, it goes to 10 in increments of 1. I'm going to hit enter, and now we've got this slider C that moves in integer increments and goes from -10 to 10. Now again, if we want to change things about this, we could right click, go to Object Properties, and change different aspects of this using the Slider tab. So now we could pause our animation and maybe we make C and B animate. So by default, you can have multiple sliders animating simultaneously. Now one last thing in this video, once you've defined a slider, it really just acts like a number, and you can use this number however you want. So I'm going to create a point called P, and what I'm going to do is say P is equal to 3 times cosine of B, and then 3 times sine of B for the y coordinate. Now mathematically, this is essentially putting this point P on a circle of radius 3, centered at the origin, and the angle is controlled by the slider B. So we'll hit enter, and now as we adjust B, that point P is going to move in a circle. I'll zoom out a little bit. So if we animate B, we see that this point is going to move on a circular path around the origin.